I applied at a bunch of different tech firms. Unfortunately, didn't get any offers. I wasn't like a strong enough candidate. 6 months later, I got into TSM and I got into about 20 interviews over the course of, I want to say like 40-ish days. Just about a week ago from today, I signed an offer. Funny enough, I've actually had recruiters reach out to me after I've rejected their first round interviews because I've signed an offer and say like, I've loved your outreach so much. Can I use
Yeah.
this example as a LinkedIn like information block?
Hey everyone, I'm Samir. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tech Sales Mentors, and with me today I have Connor, who wanted to up the intensity in his life, right? And so he viewed tech sales as that path of living up to his full potential. In 50 days in our program, he signed a really impressive offer. And so before we talk about that, like, why don't we start, Connor? Like, share a little bit more about you and your background before tech
Yeah,
sales.
absolutely. And thanks for having me, Samir. So I grew up as an athlete, and I think that was one of the big things that led me into wanting to get into tech sales, just being so like results oriented, driven, competitive. That really has kind of motivated me into wanting to be in something like tech sales. But I
Yeah.
studied economics in university, and after university, thought that I wanted to go into finance. It was a bit more like I thought it was a bit more of a safe path, a normal career trajectory kind of thing. So I got into
Yeah.
finance, spent about a year and a half there, and was kind of just like spinning my wheels, kind of felt like directionless a little bit. So I actually left the country. I lived abroad for 2 years and coming back, I applied at a bunch of different tech firms. Unfortunately, didn't get any offers. I wasn't like a strong enough candidate. So, like 6 months later, I got into TSM and it really helped me sharpen up my areas of weakness. And like you said, I accepted a great offer now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I understand why you went down the finance path. Like I was headed down that path too because you do see I think you do see ambitious people go down that path, but it's almost sometimes like they're going down that path not because they want to, but because that's what other people are telling them to
Mhm.
do. Or they're successful people in it. But like at least for me, like I could tell after a little bit like my heart wasn't into it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 100%.
And the
I think the thing about people don't realize at a bank is like my company, my previous company now had 100,000 people working there. And the reality is like there is driven people there. There is hardworking people, of course, but that is like there's maybe a smaller percentage of people that are those people. And the other people are
yeah.
just like 9 to 5, kind of like show up, like clock out, and they're not overly passionate about their job, but it mostly pays the bills. But that wasn't good enough for me. Like that wasn't the life that I wanted to live. So that's kind of like
Yeah.
why I've looked to transition out of it.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. Like, my brother, he was working at General Electric, right? Like a well-known brand, right? But at some point he realized that exactly the point that you said, which is most of the people here are clocking in at 9, leaving at 5. And that's actually okay. Like, but the part that isn't that great, because you can still work hard within those
Mhm.
hours, but like they weren't there because they wanted to like achieve the most in their
Yeah,
careers. They were there just because like they wanted like a chill job
yeah,
and not to try too hard. And I think some people that like, but that's not the energy I have. I don't think that's the place where you're at in your career
hmm
either. And so uh when like you mentioned you were applying to tech firms, tech roles, and it wasn't really working out. Like, tell me more about back then on the job search. Where were the biggest issues you were having?
yeah. So when I returned from living abroad, I didn't like I knew I was interested in tech sales, but I didn't really have like a full gauge of what it would take to get into like a good company. So I kind of sprayed
Mm.
out applications. I reached out to a couple people in my network, which really helped me get into interviews. But I realized after a couple of those interviews that I wasn't a super refined candidate. Like I was kind of just like freestyling in my interviews for behavioral questions. And then for the cold call portion in particular, like I had never done a cold call in my whole life. So coming into the cold call, like I just relied off of YouTube videos and none of them were overly helpful. I ended up spending like 2.5 minutes just pitching the product, and I could tell the interview was like totally clocked out. He like after we hung up the scenario, he was like I don't have any time for questions. Like I've got to go. I was like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
Um, so that was really tough, and I kind of realized there, like after that, I was like, okay, I need to like if I'm gonna make this a career for myself, I need to get serious about this and like look for coaching and help outside of like what I'm already finding for myself.
Yeah, and I'm sure it wasn't funny in the moment, but now that you've seen success,
Mhm.
it's okay for us to laugh about it. And so, what you're saying there is so true because the tech sales job search, it's another level if you are going for these top 1% roles, right? Because the candidates who are winning and who are getting the roles are the ones who are prep, right? Uh, and so, um, when it came to joining our program, how'd you come across us? Like, what were your thoughts initially? Was there any skepticism up front?
There actually wasn't that much skepticism. The way I came across the company was someone who was working at one of those like top 1% companies had previously used the program to get into the company. And I was like, this is a proven system. Like, I would love to work at this company. If she can do it using this program, like I can do it too. So it was a proven, like the fact that there was a proven like pathway and path to success was what stood out to me, being like there's evidence of success here. I should if I one of my biggest like kind of philosophies in life is just emulate what successful people are doing. Like if it's been successful
Totally.
stuff for someone else, take it and make it your own. So seeing that other people have used this program to be successful was like, okay, I should use this as well.
Totally. Sometimes you don't like the investment in our program is real, but sometimes you don't have to overcomplicate decisions in the sense that like there was one thing that mattered for you. Does the program get you into the companies that you want?
Mhm.
And you had saw success for them, right? Like there's so many factors you could decide, but the number one most important one, like you made sure that got precedent. And if that question got answered, then cool, that gave you the confidence. And so that's great. You joined the program. Walk me through those first few weeks. Like how did the job search start to feel different for you?
Well, for one, my life got a ton more busy. I was getting in a lot more interviews. Um, Within the first like 2 weeks, I had already kind of set myself up for a few interviews. But I hopped like immediately into my first chat with my mentor, like, hey, it's nice to meet you. I've got an interview in like 4 days. Let's kind of get after it. So I had
Yeah.
3 sessions with my mentor in my first week. And it was actually kind of over the holidays as well when I first joined. So she gave me like homework to do over the holidays to make sure I'm staying on top of things. But more so than anything, it really just gave me like a clear, defined like areas I needed to work on, and also brought a ton more interviews and opportunities kind of across my plate.
Yeah. And so what were some of the breakthroughs like you had with your coach through the job search? Like what did they help you work on and get better on through the program?
Yeah, I think one of the strongest things about the program for me was just like the clarity that it gave into my areas of weakness. There's obviously like thousands of hours of content on how to get into jobs on YouTube, but there isn't like that's so general. You don't really know what your areas of weakness are, and you're not going to be able to find those out without having someone who knows how to get into a great company listen to your areas of weakness on those recorded interviews and hone in on those skills. And then also it really just like shifted my mentality as well, especially on the cold call portion. A big mentality shift for me was the fact that you're not trying to pitch and sell the product, but you're really trying to pitch the meeting. And as an SDR, that was a real big mentality shift for me and something I had never realized. So after that kind of like shift clicked, like I touched on earlier, I feel like I could go into almost any cold call, like mock cold call with like 15, 30 minutes of prep and just like crush it, as opposed to 6 months ago, I would spend like 2, 3 hours slamming research on a company just to have a terrible pitch where I'm talking for like 3 minutes straight.
Yeah. Yeah, because that can be overwhelming because you're like, I need to learn everything about the product possible, which is just like an impossible task to do in a few
Yeah,
days. When in reality, that's actually not the goal,
yeah,
right? Uh, and so that point you made initially, like there's so much content on the internet of a job search. I think that's true of everything. Like me, my first 3, 4 years in business, I consumed so much content on entrepreneurship, how to grow my business. My business did not grow that fast, but once I started implementing coaching for
yeah,
myself, for my coaching business, my business grew way
yeah,
faster, right? Because there are so many things for you to learn, but in reality, there's only 2 to 3 things that you really need to focus on. And you can't identify that, right?
mhm,
You're new to this. So someone who's ahead of you who actually does know the 2 or 3 constraints that matters, identifies that for you and the solution, that it simplifies, right? You just have to like execute
yeah.
that,
And
right?
and honestly,
Uh,
sometimes having that freedom of choice honestly becomes a hindrance because one person over here is saying you got to do X, Y, and Z, and then another video is saying do the complete opposite. And it's like you're getting all these conflicting opinions, whereas if you just have one mentor, you don't need to spend all your time like watching a bunch of random YouTube videos. You can just go to this one knowledgeable person and absorb all the advice they have for you.
yeah. Yeah. So it's funny you say that because I will create videos that 2 different videos that contradict each other, but it's because it applies to different types of
Pers-
people, right?
Yeah.
So like one person does need to apply more. Another person actually needs to apply like less and
Mhm.
be more higher quality, right? And so that's why the one-on-one thing really helps. The actual advice you need, oh, I know your situation. I know the problem you're facing.
Yeah.
I know the piece. So I see what you're saying there. But it can be frustrating as a content
Yeah.
consumer. Um, so then, tell me more. Like, what were the results of the program? Tell me about all the success you ended up with.
Yeah, so I got into about 20 interviews over the course of, I want to say like 40-ish days. Just about a week ago from today, I signed an offer with Zip HQ. It's an intake to procurement brand or company out of SF. I'm going to be starting 1 week from today, so super quick turnaround. I got into, like I said, about 19 total interviews. Um, Probably like 5 or 6 second rounds, a couple of third rounds as well. And then, yeah, like I said, signed that offer relatively recently. And also, just to keep in mind, that was over the holidays as well. So that was like almost a full 2 weeks where people weren't doing interviews. So really, that like 51 days was more so like almost like 30 business days. So it was a super quick process. And funny enough, I've actually had recruiters reach out to me after I've rejected their first round interviews because I've signed an offer and say like, I've loved your outreach so much. Like, can I use
Yeah.
this example as a LinkedIn like information block? So it's like such a
Yeah.
proven like it's time and effort that I wouldn't been able to have or even knowledge on my plate that the team can fully support.
Yeah. You're gonna have to slack me those examples after because that's awesome. I love to hear
Yeah.
that. Um, cool. And when it comes to starting at Zip, like what excites you most about that opportunity and joining that company? And just how your days are gonna be different.
Yeah, so I've even said this in interviews before that this is not only a career change for me, but like honestly a lifestyle change as well. Going into sales, I always wanted to work at a company where like my passions would really also align with the company's goals and trajectory as well. I briefly touched on it before, but I used to work at a company with 100,000 employees and I kind of felt like I got lost in the shuffle. So it was important for me to be at a startup-led company where the CEO was also the founder and really had like a clear vision for the company. So I'm really excited to work for a company where like the CEO is still has that like very clear growth trajectory in mind, and there's a really bright future for the company. The company's still growing rapidly. I'm going to be working out of the Toronto office with a bunch of other really talented, hardworking people. So I'm really excited to just like get going and be around a lot of other successful, driven people.
Yeah, those people, some of those people are gonna become your lifelong friends, lifelong, business networking people who you get future opportunities from, give future opportunities to. So soak it up. You're gonna love it for sure. So looking back, right? Like you made the investment in our program. Like, was it worth it for you?
Yeah, I mean, within 50 days, like I said, I've signed a great offer, and it was a relatively like big investment for me to make upfront, but I'm gonna be making potentially like $30,000 more than I would have in my current job over the course of a year. So just by
Yeah.
signing this job, like it'll pay for itself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the frame you want to take, especially as like a salesperson who wants to make money. Is just like, is this ROI positive or
Mhm.
not? Right. And there's one version of that, right? This is the short-term ROI. Then also there's the long-term
Yeah,
ROI,
100%.
right? Now you're in top tech companies. Now you're on a career path where you can double your income in a
Yeah.
year or two. Um, so um, like probably there's people watching this. They're considering tech sales mentors. They're on the fence. Like, what would you say to that person who's like thinking, weighing, deciding if they should join the program?
Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. If you're thinking about it, like get serious, join the program. It's like a great program, like we've touched on. And if you are serious about getting into tech sales, like treat the process of getting into tech sales as seriously as you're telling yourself that you're going to treat the job. Because if you're not treating like getting the actual job itself as like as an SDR would, then you're not going to be successful as an SDR anyways. So like get serious about it now. And like I said before, like what are you waiting for? Like the best time to do it is today.
Yeah. Love that quote. Love that quote. The serious part is so true. Like it's um the interview is sometimes, I wouldn't say it is, but it's one of the harder parts, right? Versus the job is hard too, but they keep the bar high, right? Um, so I love that. I love that takeaway. Well, Connor, I'll leave your LinkedIn below in case anyone wants to connect with you. And then for anyone that's ready to get serious, techsalesmentors.com, the links below to see if you qualify for the program. We'll see you guys on the other side.
So, yeah.